Hey, hello everyone. Welcome. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with my friend Connie. Hi, Connie.
Hello.
So we are continuing with the study of the text of A Course in Miracles, and we left off on chapter 14, Teaching for Truth, and we are starting section 3, the decision for guilt. Excuse me, the decision for guiltlessness. It's a long section, so we're going to split it in two parts. So we'll probably stop around paragraph 9 or 10. The decision for guiltlessness. I find the title right off. Very, what's the word? Well, the word decision really caught my attention here because I don't think I've considered guilt to really be a decision. Guilt just seems to be there, or it seems to show up. But this is implying that it's a decision. So let's see what it's saying here. Okay, paragraph 1. The happy learner cannot feel guilty about learning. This is so essential to learning that it should never be forgotten. The guiltless learner learns easily because his thoughts are free. Yet this entails the recognition that guilt is interference, not salvation, and serves no useful function at all. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So the way that I grew up thinking about guilt was really more in terms of salvation, that it was a good thing to feel guilty because it meant that you were remorseful and that you had a good conscience, meaning that, yes, if you do something you're not supposed to, okay, then you should feel guilty. That was kind of what was implied there. So we've kind of normalized guilt. Um, is that your experience too, Connie? Yeah. Yeah. So, but this is saying that it's actually an interference. It's not salvation, okay? And it has no useful function at all. It's basically saying, just throw it out the window, okay? And I don't think that's going to fly with the way that most of us have been brought up, especially if we've gone to, traditional Christian religious indoctrination. Yeah. So let's see. But this is saying that it is an interference to learning from the Holy Spirit, okay, which is the voice for God. And it says that guiltless learners learn more easily because their thoughts are free. Okay, so let's just look at that a little bit. Their thoughts are free. So we have a lot of shoulds and have tos and limitations to how we think, right? So we put limitations even not just on what we do, but also in like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about that. That's, or let me see, or those thoughts are bad, I don't even want to think those thoughts. Okay. So there's fear. We have fear of thinking some thoughts, right? Well, for example, the thought of suicide can be extremely fearful to think about for anybody. So if that thought comes up, people tend to feel very scared because it's a thought that okay, because when we make thoughts fearful, it's as if they are separate from our mind, and therefore can control our mind. So we actually give them power over our mind, and that's why they're fearful. It's a little bit, we were talking a little bit about addictions earlier. So it's a little bit like saying, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to follow through with that thought without really wanting to. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that the mind is split. It's following this script, this program, this thought that I'm supposed to, okay? Because the thought has authority. I have given it authority. And now I have to obey it. Yeah. Does that make sense, Connie? Yeah. And this says that without guilt, then our thoughts are free, which means that there's no fear. They're free. They're free. We're not afraid of them because we know they don't. Because we know there are thoughts, and not the other way around. Our thoughts cannot control us, possess us. It's our mind that is responsible, or that has is the author of the thoughts. Okay. Okay, paragraph 2.
Perhaps you are accustomed to using guiltlessness merely to offset the pain of guilt, and do not look upon it as having value in itself. You believe that guilt and guiltlessness are both of value, each representing an escape from what the other does not offer you. You do not want either alone, for without both, you do not see yourself as whole and therefore happy. Yet you are whole only in your guiltlessness. Can you scroll down? I'm not seeing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yet you are whole only in your guiltlessness, and only in your guiltlessness can you be happy. There is no conflict here. To wish for guilt in any way, in any form, will lose appreciation of the value of your guiltlessness and push it from your sight.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so we're using guilt as a way to okay. So when we feel guilty, we're in pain. Okay. And what we're accustomed to doing is to project the guilt so that we can say, oh no, I'm guiltless and you're the one that's guilty, and to blame, because then I can offset my pain by denying, okay, that I'm the one that's guilty. Okay. So do you see how that's a denial of a whole mind, and we split the mind? Yeah. Okay. And so and because we use guilt and guiltlessness that way, we do not look at guiltlessness as having value in itself, because we're making guilt the normal state. You see? So we're starting with the foundation of guilt, and then we're saying, well, yes, we want to give value to guiltlessness, because when I'm in too much pain and I can't stand this guilt, then I would like to feel guiltless to make myself feel better, and I'm just going to blame you for it. Okay. And I definitely don't want to be punished. So if I do something bad and my mother's going to get me in trouble, I'm just going to blame my little brother. Okay. So we learned that very young. Okay. So because we have the guilt associated with the punishment and therefore the pain, and the guiltlessness with no punishment. Okay, no pain. So we've given value to both. That's what line 2 says. Both guilt and guiltlessness therefore have value. Okay. And we go from one side to the other to escape from what the other does not offer. Okay. Because we also find, okay, that guilt can offer pleasure, right? Guilty pleasure. That's a very common saying. Okay. Oh, yes, I'm just going to have my box of chocolates. It's my guilty pleasure. Okay. So, or maybe I'm just going to have a couple of drinks. That's my guilty pleasure. So everybody has this idea that if they have a little bit too much of what they find really good, it becomes excessive, and then it is no longer guiltless. It turns into guilt. Right? If you go from one drink, I'm only going to have one drink, but then you have two, then you go from guiltless, one drink, to guilty, two drinks. Is that right, Connie? Yeah. Yeah. So there's a limit there, and we decide, of course, where the limit is between guilt and guiltlessness. I mean, maybe for someone it's between 1 and 2 drinks. Well, for someone it could be between 2 and 3 drinks, or 4 and 5 drinks. What's too much? Okay, it's all subjective. So okay, so what this is saying is that is that we have an idea that by holding on to both or opposites, we think that that's what being whole is, because we think that two opposites make a whole. That's what we think. Okay. We think that a positive and a negative make a whole. But they don't. They just make two opposites. Anyway, but because we see it that way, we therefore let's see. Okay, we think that we need to have both guiltlessness and guilt to be happy. Okay, if we're going to have pain from guilt, then we want to make sure we have pleasure too, in some way. Okay, and we're going to need guiltlessness. It's opposite. So, but this is making the point, really, okay, that wholeness, okay, does not have an opposite, in that our natural state is innocence, which is guiltlessness. Okay. And this is where we can be happy. Only in your guiltlessness can you be happy. Because with both guilt and guiltlessness, we keep switching back and forth, and it's not really happiness. It's pleasure, it's excitement, it's they're fleeting moments where that don't last. And only in guiltlessness is there no conflict. So where there's conflict, there's going to be fear and there's going to be guilt, because most likely there's a judgment of sin and wrongdoing, right? So if you make that distinction between 1 drink and 2 drinks, okay, and you take the second drink, you're going to feel guilty because you went against what you had decided before, which was 1 drink. And now the mind is in conflict with itself. Yeah. Okay, so to wish for guilt in any way, in any form, and the word here is wish. It's not will. Okay, we cannot will for guilt, because the wholeness of our true self is guiltless. Okay, so if we want to not be whole, that cannot be the will of God. That cannot be our will as we were created whole. It would have to be a wish. So it would have to be part of an illusion, a dream. And if we do wish for it, then we lose appreciation of the value of our guiltlessness. And we push it from our sight, so we can't see it anymore. And now we just see ourselves as guilty. You know, this part of it now. Does that make sense, Tony?
Yes, and I'm also thinking about this right now in another situation. So this family that lost their son and home, you know, there is a part of my husband and I guess it comes up every now and then, of guilt. And it's like feeling guilty that we're okay, they're not, that kind of thing. So does that make sense? Whereas
oh yeah, people call it survivor guilt. It's like,
yeah,
oh well, how come that happened to them and we survived it? Like here in Northern California, we had all those fires, and in one neighborhood, 20 of the houses were burnt and 1 or 2 were left. So it's like, well, why was that? Only
and
2.
how can we be happy when they're so miserable?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a survivor's guilt, because once we go into guilt, once we buy into the idea, okay, that
So where does that guilt start then?
the guilt starts in the belief in separation, okay, because it implies specialness and scarcity. Okay, and specialness and scarcity means that in the events of life, some people are more fortunate than others, you see. And then we attribute that to divine power. We attribute destruction to divine power, which is not true. Okay, divine power is creative, eternal love. It does not have destructive power, or it would also be a split mind. It would not be a whole mind. Yeah. But most of us look at the world dualistically through a split mind. Yeah. And therefore we look at God that way too. And it's not true. But that's the way that we perceive with a split mind. Okay. Yeah. So number 3. Okay. There is no compromise that you can make with guilt and escape the pain that only guiltlessness allays. Learning is living here, as creating is being in heaven. Whenever the pain of guilt seems to attract you, remember that if you yield to it, you are deciding against your happiness. Yeah. And will not learn how to be happy. Say therefore to yourself, gently, but with conviction, born of the love of God and of his Son. What I experience, I will make manifest. If I am guiltless, I have nothing to fear. Yeah, I choose to testify to my acceptance of the atonement, not to its rejection. I would accept my guiltlessness by making it manifest and sharing it. Let me bring peace to God's Son from his Father. Okay. Okay, so this is almost like a little prayer, but it's an affirmation. To help us escape from the attraction to guilt, which is, pain. Okay. So the way out of pain is guiltlessness. Okay. The way out of pain is guiltlessness, and it means that we don't want to compromise and accept guilt. Okay. So this is what living is here in time. It's learning because we have accepted guilt almost by default. And now we have to learn that it's not true. And that's what time is for. It's for healing the mind that believes it's separated from God and is therefore guilty of having accomplished that. And now we have to recognize we're learning here in time. Oh, wait a minute. How can that be? That's impossible. Okay. I cannot be guilty because the separation never happened. So that's why there's the, in line 7, it says, I choose to testify to my acceptance of the atonement, okay, which is the recognition, separation never happened. I cannot be guilty. I cannot be a guilty son of God. God has not condemned me. Okay. And if God has not condemned me, how can the things of the world condemn me? Well, they can't unless I believe and have given them power to in my own thinking. Okay. And this is saying that if there seems to be some attraction, to the guilt and the pain, just remember that in yielding to it, we are deciding against our happiness. So I think that's a really good way to remember, because it's a trick. Remember, when we do yield to the guilt and pain of saying, okay, well, maybe it's an addiction. Okay. There's a part of us that recognizes, okay, that in that moment, it may bring, it may make us feel good. Okay. But in the long run, we regret it. Right. So that's because we decided against our happiness. And regret is a very heavy, it's actually guilt. There's guilt and regret. There's sadness and anger and guilt in there. Yeah, there's a lot in regret, and we cannot be happy when we have regrets. So so that's what we're learning here. We're learning to decide for guiltlessness, so that we can be happy. Okay, and this Yeah, so, and, what it's giving us here is a way to remind ourselves of what I'm doing so that I can decide for guiltlessness, because it's giving us the motivation to say, well, wait a minute, do I really want fear? Do I really want what I am tempted to do and what it brings me, that experience? Do I really want that experience? Yes. And would I rather have peace? Am I valuing peace more than that what that worldly pleasure offers me? Okay. Number 4.
Each day, each hour and minute, even each second, you are deciding between the crucifixion and the resurrection, between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego is the choice for guilt. The Holy Spirit, the choice for guiltlessness. The power of decision is all that is yours. What you can decide between is fixed because there are no alternatives except truth and illusion. And there is no overlap between them because they are opposites, which cannot be reconciled and cannot both be true. You are guilty or guiltless, bound or free, unhappy or happy.
Yeah. Yeah, so the decision is really straightforward. It's between the ego and the Holy Spirit, and one is for guilt and one is for guiltlessness. And I think also the emotions go with that, because the Course says there's only 2 emotions. It's either love or fear. Well, the guilt is going to bring us fear, and the guiltlessness, love. And all of the emotions are motion, ego in motion. Okay. So they're all a decision. They're all the effect of us having decided for the ego. Because it's suffering. See how it says up here, between crucifixion and resurrection. Yeah, all the emotions are suffering. Even the positive ones, because the positive ones don't last. And then we're left with a loss and wanting more of it. Yeah. And then that's where we get into the addictions. We get bound to that just little moment of highness, whatever that was, that rush, whatever that was. And we're always just pursuing that little bit. And but the decision is the same. It's the decision for the ego, for guilt, and for unhappiness. So it's pretty straightforward when we really understand that let's see, that what you can decide between is fixed. That's the power of decision. I mean, the world seems to offer us a lot of different types of decisions, but those are not actual decisions of power. What am I going to eat for dinner today? Okay, that it's the same thing. It's food or food. It's fish or pasta. It's food and food. That's not a decision. That's a preference. And we think that preferences are decisions. Well, they're not, because preferences are conditioned likes. Anybody can be conditioned to like fish or conditioned to like something else. That's not a decision. So it's always just between the truth and illusion. That's the only true decision. Does that make sense? Truth and illusion. Yeah. Okay, number 5. The miracle teaches you that you have chosen guiltlessness, freedom, and joy. It is not a cause, but an effect. It is the natural result of choosing right, attesting to your happiness that comes from choosing to be free of guilt. Everyone you offer healing to returns it. Everyone you attack keeps it and cherishes it and holds it against you. Whenever he does this or does it not will make no difference. Whether he does this or does it not will make no difference. You will think he does. Okay. It is impossible to offer what you do not want without this penalty. The cost of giving is receiving. Either it is a penalty from which you suffer, or the happy purchase of a treasure to hold dear. Okay, let's start from the top here. Okay, so the miracle teaches you that you have chosen guiltlessness, freedom, and joy. It is not a cause, but an effect. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. Let me see here. So the miracle teaches us, okay, that that guiltlessness, freedom, and joy are a decision, not a random thing, not a fortune not a fortune thing, not oh, I must be really special to God kind of a thing. But that guiltlessness, freedom, and joy are the recognition and the acceptance of the atonement. So it means that we're in our right mind, and that's where the miracle originates. It's from the right mind. So it kind of reaffirms, the miracle reaffirms that we are in our right mind because we experience guiltlessness, freedom, and joy. So that's what must be in our mind if that's what we're experiencing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, it's not a cause, but it's an effect. That's interesting, because I thought that healing was the effect and the miracle was the cause. But this is saying that the miracle is the effect. Because the source, yes, because the source of the miracle is love, is the eternal love of God. Okay, that's why it's not a cause. Because the source is the cause. So it is the natural result of choosing right. Yes, Connie?
Could you say the cause is the decision?
Well, yes, the cause is the decision. Okay. Because when we are in our right mind, the decision maker, okay, is the self that is one with the will of God. So we are not separate from the Holy Spirit when we are in our right mind. Yeah. So in that oneness, that would be the decision maker that recognizes it can only choose for God. There's no other choice. Because it's between truth or illusion, and illusion doesn't exist. Truth does not have an opposite. There's basically nothing there to decide for. If we decide for the ego or for illusion, we are deciding for nothing. Yeah. See, we think, oh, we're deciding for something, a thing, something that we think that the world of illusion, because it's physical, that it is a thing. And so we make it real in our mind. So we think that we are deciding for something that's real, which would be guilt. That's why the mind gets split, because we're seeing it as illusion as real and truth as real. Okay, which is not possible. There's a reason why one is truth and one is illusion. Okay, because only truth can be real. Illusion is not real. But because we believe in illusions, we give them that power of our belief. So yes, we believe Santa Claus is real. Okay, so we deceive ourselves, we delude ourselves with fantasy, and we like fantasy. We do, you know. But this is saying that it comes with guilt. So when we decide for illusion, when we decide for the ego, it's going to come with guilt, okay? And it's going to come with unhappiness. Yeah. And with imprisonment, because our thoughts are not going to be free. But the miracle is the natural result of choosing right. That's right mind. Attesting to your happiness that comes from choosing to be free of guilt. And this explains why we would be happy if we choose to be free of guilt, because you see, everyone then would offer healing in return, because we would not be projecting guilt. So if we accept our guiltlessness, we could not attack, we could not project, we could not blame, because the only thing that we could give would be innocence and guiltlessness, and that's healing. So everyone you offer healing to returns it, because giving is receiving. Otherwise, if we decide for the ego, for the belief in separation, and for guilt, we're going to attack, because the guilt is so painful, we try to get rid of it by making ourselves guiltless, by projecting it onto others and blaming others, blaming the world, blaming God, our situation, whatever. So that's an attack. So everyone you attack keeps it and cherishes it by holding it against you. That's what we think. Oh my God, I have attacked them. Okay, I have been unloving to them. I have chosen my ego self to protect at their expense. That's a scarcity belief. And now they're going to hold that against me. So I'm going to be afraid of them attacking me back. Okay, line 6, whether they're really thinking that or doing that, okay, it makes no difference, because that's what I'm thinking they will do. That will be my experience. Because it's impossible to offer what you do not want without this penalty. Yeah. So when we project guilt, we're trying to get rid of guilt, which we don't want. But obviously we did want, or we wouldn't be feeling guilty, but now we don't want it. Okay. And if we attack with the guilt by trying to get rid of it, there's going to be a penalty. We're going to believe that the other people are going to do the same thing, because we're guilty of doing it to them. We think, well, yeah, they're going to do it back to me. So that's the thing about you know, when people condemn and accuse others, it's because they're doing it themselves, or they've done it themselves, and they're trying to get rid of that guilt that's unconscious for them. And that's the cost of giving is receiving. Either it's a penalty, or it's a happy purchase of a treasure to hold dear, because this is saying that it's like an exchange, the giving and the receiving here, the guiltlessness. If I forgive, then I am saying you are guiltless. I am sharing the truth that I know about myself. So I'm going to not project. I'm going to not judge. I'm not going to attack. And therefore, the mind remains innocent. And all I see is innocence, which is the Holy Spirit vision. And that's what blesses. The holy mind blesses the Son of God, because it's sharing. Okay. Okay. Number 6.
No penalty is ever asked of God's Son except by himself and of himself. Every chance given him to heal is another opportunity to replace darkness with light and fear with love. If he refuses it, he binds himself to darkness because he did not choose to free his brother and enter light with him. By giving power to nothing, he throws away the joyous opportunity to learn that nothing has no power. And by not dispelling darkness, he became afraid of. Wait a moment, what happened?
I moved it for you, sorry.
Okay, thanks. And by not dispelling darkness, he became afraid of darkness and of light. The joy of learning that darkness has no power over the Son of God is the happy lesson the Holy Spirit teaches and would have you teach with him. It is his joy to teach it, as it will be yours.
Okay. Yes. So, okay. So they're talking about the penalty up here from line 9. Okay. Which is the decision for guilt. It's either going to be a penalty from which you suffer. And God is not asking for a penalty. He's not asking us to choose to suffer. Okay. He's not asking us to choose guilt. We're doing that. Okay. No penalties ever asked of God's Son except by himself and of himself. Okay. Because we made up the belief in punishment. That's not coming from God. I mean, I grew up with a belief of God of the Old Testament, and believe that he was a punishing, a judging God. Okay. And it's taken me a really, really long time to let go of that belief. It's not true. So we made up that idea of God being a punishing God, and so we're afraid of God. You know, we're afraid of love. But this is what we're here to heal. So we have all these opportunities to heal and to replace the darkness, those thoughts of darkness, those beliefs of darkness, with light. Okay, and therefore release the fear and replace the fear with love. So that's what we're learning here from the Holy Spirit. is that my beliefs about God being judging and condemning and sending me to hell, they're not true. That God created me guiltless. And if I'm guiltless, there would be no reason to punish. There would be no place called hell. Okay. So, okay, now, but I can refuse. I have free will. Okay. I don't have to use these opportunities for healing. And if I don't use them, then I just stay bound to the darkness, to those thoughts, to those beliefs. Because I did not choose to free my brother by forgiveness, by forgiving, by seeing him as innocent along with myself. And that would be entering the light with him. So there's several places where the Course talks about, you know, about salvation and entering heaven with our brothers, because we can't do it alone. We can't, because it's a whole mind. So a whole mind cannot enter the light of heaven and recognize its wholeness when it's still believing that my brothers are separate from me and guilty. So I have to be able to see everybody as guiltless in order to recognize the wholeness of the mind that God created us with, and that we are, as his children, part of that kingdom. So okay, so if I refuse that opportunity for healing, I am giving power to nothing, because I'm deciding for illusion. All I'm doing is throwing away the joyous opportunity to learn that nothing has no power, because I'm holding on to the belief in the darkness, and therefore it will have power in my mind. And that's very fearful. So the Holy Spirit is offering us a release from fear right here. And by not dispelling darkness, he becomes afraid of darkness and of light. Because once we're in fear, then we make opposites to truth. That's the duality of it. So we're going to be afraid of both darkness and the light, because the mind is split, is going to perceive dualistically. And so the happy learner is here learning that darkness has no power over the Son of God. And that's the happy lesson Holy Spirit teaches and would have us teach with him. Yes, so as we teach it, we recognize that it is ours. So, okay, number 7. Connie?
I think it's your turn.
Is it? I
You
thought
do the odd.
right before.
You started with 1. You do the odd numbers.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll read this one.
Okay.
The way to teach this simple lesson is merely this: guiltlessness is invulnerability. Therefore, make your invulnerability manifest to everyone. Teach him that whatever he may try to do to you, your perfect freedom from the belief that you can be harmed shows him that he is guiltless. He can do nothing that can hurt you, and by refusing to allow him to think he can, you teach him that the atonement, which you have accepted for yourself, is also his. There is nothing to forgive. No one can hurt the Son of God. His guilt is wholly without cause, and being without cause cannot exist. Okay, so now this is really valuable here, because who doesn't want to be invulnerable? Who doesn't want to be free of fear, right? Who doesn't want to be completely, who doesn't want to walk the earth unafraid of, disaster, catastrophe, crime, attack, all of that? Everyone wants that. And so guiltlessness offers that to us, invulnerability. So we can manifest that to everyone by teaching that whatever our brother may try to do, our perfect freedom from the belief that you can be harmed shows him that he is guiltless. Okay, and that's part of the, of the forgiveness, that I forgive my brother for what he did not do. Okay, it doesn't mean that that I forgive him for what he failed to do. No, I forgive him because what he did is not causal, it's not creative to my happiness. Okay, only my guiltlessness is the cause of my happiness. And if I forgive, I'm teaching him that he is not the cause. He cannot be the cause of harming me in any way. Okay. And that shows him that he is guiltless. He does not have that power to harm or hurt me, because if I forgive him, then I'm offering guiltlessness and recognizing that in myself, and I will be happy, regardless of what happens. Mandela was in jail for all those years. Okay. From what I can tell, he was okay with that. He could be happy in jail, So there's nothing that others can do to us that can take away our happiness when we are guiltless, because that's invulnerability. Okay. Yeah. And that's why, even though we practice forgiveness, there's nothing really to forgive. So I forgive my brother for what he did not do. Okay, well, then there's nothing to forgive. He didn't do anything. No one can hurt the Son of God. Okay, once we recognize we are the Son of God, then we recognize we are guiltless and we are invulnerable to attack. Okay, because the mind is innocent, and the projections that mind would not be projecting. That mind would be extending love. Okay, so there would be no fear that someone else would be attacking. So there would be no miscreation of manifesting those experiences of attack. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. So the cause for guilt is made up. We make up the cause for guilt, like I was saying earlier, right? How many how many drinks is too much? That's where we draw the line, and guilt on one side and guiltless on the other. So that's why it's without a cause, because it's a subjective judgment. That's why we need a whole jury, right, to come to an agreement to find someone guilty. Yeah, because we need the collective judgment, precisely because it's subjective, and that in itself does not make the criminal guilty. It just means that because of the laws that we have accepted the agreement to give punishment to breaking those laws, and they're worldly laws. They're not godly laws.
Mhm.
Okay. 8.
Okay. God is the only cause, and guilt is not of him. Teach no one he has hurt you, for if you do, you teach yourself that what is not of God has power over you. The causeless cannot be. Do not attest to it, and do not foster belief in it in any mind. Remember always that mind is one and cause is one. You will learn
Sorry.
communication.
I did it again.
It's okay. You will learn communication with this oneness only when you learn to deny the causeless and accept the cause of God as yours. The power that God has given to his Son is his, and nothing else can his Son see or choose to look upon without imposing on himself the penalty of guilt in place of all the happy teaching the Holy Spirit would gladly offer him.
Yeah. So what do you think, honey, in this one?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm having a little struggle in my own mind about something that's occurring in my world. So I think I'll let you peruse this and digest it.
Okay. So the first line here is really, really fundamental. Okay. God is the only cause with a capital C. And we already said guilt is not of God, okay, because God is a loving God. So God is not going to condemn. And that goes against a lot of religious teachings, okay?
Mhm.
But if God is love, then God cannot be condemning. It's a contradiction. Okay? Okay, so we have to decide for the truth, and the truth has no opposite. There's no contradiction in the truth. There's no opposite to the truth. So that's why the truth cannot be attacked. We cannot offend God. Okay. And that's why we're not guilty, because it's impossible to actually attack or oppose or offend God. That is part of the illusion. Okay. Guilt is not of God. Okay. And if guilt is not of God, and God created us in the likeness as all creation, does, then we cannot be guilty either, because God does not have guilt to give. So he cannot have given us guilt. So we are inherently innocent, as our true nature. The Son of God is inherently guiltless, innocent. Okay. So if we condemn, and if we tell someone, if we believe that someone has, oh, you hurt my feelings. Okay, well, what you said was not true, and you're spreading rumors, and that really hurt me. Okay. Or whatever, however many different ways we think that we can be hurt. Okay. What we're teaching, okay, is that what is not of God is causal. Okay. And we're giving it power over us.
Mhm.
And if we do that, we're going to be afraid of the world. We're going to be afraid of people because we think they can hurt us. We're going to be afraid of, going into a relationship because look at what happened in my past one, and they cheated on me and they hurt me and all of that. Okay. So the costless once we attribute cost to anything in the world, we have bought into the illusion as if it was reality. And this is reminding us that the costless cannot be. So do not attest to it. Do not project guilt. Do not condemn. Do not accuse. Do not judge. Okay. Because otherwise we're fostering the belief in the mind that illusion is causal. And we're making guilt real to us. Okay. So remember always that the mind is one and the cause is one. So this is undoing the split. So remember, okay, we cannot really think, the thoughts we think that are not in alignment with the thoughts of God are not real. And we're not really thinking when we hold those thoughts. And the way to learn communication with the oneness of the divine power of God is to learn to deny the costless and accept only God as causal, as reality, and therefore not take seriously anything that would say that we are guilty and that others are guilty. Okay, and this is saying that the power that God has given to his son is ours, is ours, and nothing else can his son see or choose to look upon without imposing on himself the penalty of guilt. So he said that power was the power of, let's see, how did he, when we looked at, he said the power, something about the power. He had, number 4 in paragraph 6. Okay, by giving power to nothing, he throws away the joyous opportunity to learn that nothing has no power. Okay, so, okay, so the power that God gave us, okay, if we give it to nothing, we will impose that penalty of guilt on us because we're splitting the mind and believing that there's both guilt and guiltlessness. In place of recognizing that only guiltlessness is true, and in offering that. So we're misusing the power of God when we accept and project guilt. Okay, because we're choosing it to miscreate something that's not true, something that's unreal, that's unlike God. Okay, number 9. Do you want to read number 9?
That's yours.
Okay. Whenever you choose to make decisions for yourself, you are thinking destructively, and the decision will be wrong. Okay. It will hurt you because of the concept of decision that led to it. It is not true that you can make decisions by yourself or for yourself alone. Okay, and that's very contrary to what we believe. That's what an individual does, right? Makes decisions for themselves alone. No thought of God's Son can be separate or isolated in its effects. Every decision is made for the whole sonship, directed in and out, and influencing a constellation larger than anything you ever dreamed of. Okay, so that's very significant there, to say that, wait a minute, what I'm deciding here, when I'm deciding for guilt or guiltlessness, is going to be influencing, see, a constellation larger than anything you ever dreamed of. Okay. Yes. So to think that we are making decisions alone, right? We were mentioning the idea, the alien will, before we started. Okay, that's what this is believing, hey, I'm just going to make this little decision on my own, and it's only going to hurt me. So, I mean, I've heard people say things like, oh, well, let's see. It's okay to it's okay to do this because it's only going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt anybody else. That's how they give themselves permission to hurt themselves, saying, hey, if I want pain, it's okay. I'm just going to hurt myself. Okay, well, this is saying that that's going to be the wrong decision, and it is going to hurt you. Okay. Because you're believing that decisions are of a private mind, and we don't have a private mind. It's one mind. The Son of God is one mind, and even the ego thought system is just one mind, because it's split right and wrong, and it's not individual wrong minds and individual right minds. So it's not true that you can make decisions by yourself or for yourself alone, because it's a shared power. You see, we don't have individual power. God did not give us this specialized individual power to make decisions that only impact ourselves. It's the same power for everyone. So no thought of God's Son can be separate or isolated in its effect, because all of our thoughts have power. So, and it's a good idea to remember that, because we don't want to join in anything. For example, if we're watching the news or we're watching things, or we're watching YouTube or whatever, and people are coming up with all these fearful things, and oh, this is predictions. This is okay. We don't want to give the power of our thoughts to that. You see what I'm saying? Because we don't want to support that in the mind, because it's one mind. Yeah. Okay. 10. And then we can stop after this, Connie.
Okay.
Or maybe, do you want to stop here, or do you want to just read this last one?
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead and read number 10, and we'll stop there.
Those who accept the atonement are invulnerable, but those who believe they are guilty will respond to guilt because they think it is salvation and will not refuse to see it and side with it. They believe that increasing guilt is self-protection, and they will fail to understand the simple fact that what they do not want must hurt them. All this arises because they do not believe that what they want is good. Yet will was given them because it is holy and will bring to them all that they need, coming as naturally as peace that knows no limits. There is nothing their will fails to provide that offers them anything of value. Yet because they do not understand their will, the Holy Spirit quietly understands it for them and gives them what they want without effort, strain, or the impossible burden of deciding what they want and need alone.
Yeah. What's coming up, Connie?
Just line 3, believing that increasing guilt is self-protection. Yeah, understand that.
Yes, because the self here is the belief that we are guilty. You see?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
therefore that image of ourselves would be undone by believing that we are guiltless. So protection would mean that there would be an attraction to increasing guilt, because we want to hold on to that view of ourselves as guilty and as having accomplished the separation and being an individual ego self, ego body self. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can look at your decisions and see where the decisions that we make, when those decisions are wrong, that we are actually deciding to protect this guilty self-image of ourselves that we have not, that has not healed. Yeah. And so, because we don't want the guiltlessness, then we're going to suffer the penalty, which is going to hurt us, which is vulnerability. We're going to feel vulnerable and fearful to attack. Yeah. So, okay. And all this arises because they do not believe that what they want is good. Okay. So we believe that our will wants what is bad. And that's why we think we're bad. Does that make sense?
We want.
Okay. All this, yeah. So all this arises because they do not believe that what they want is good. So if I say, okay, I'm just going to smoke one cigarette, no more. I know it's not good for me. Okay. But then I have two. Okay. Then I'm going to believe that having the second one is bad for me. Okay. I'm going to believe that what I want is bad. So it's the same thing as saying that I do not believe that wanting a second cigarette is good. Right? Because I made the judgment, okay, of not giving myself the second cigarette because I judged it bad. But then when I still want it, I'm saying, oh man, I want what is not good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I must have a bad will. My will, you know, wants things that are bad. So what it's saying is that I'm split. My will is split. I want things that are good, but then I can't control myself and I have more than I should, which is bad. You know, too much of a good thing is bad. That's the same idea. So then I make myself guilty for it. And because I believe that my will is bad, I'm not going to trust myself. Okay. And then I'm going to keep trying to impose authoritative rules upon myself. Okay. Next time, I'm only going to have one cigarette. And if I have two, I'm going to punish myself in some way, you know, or I'm going to get really angry with myself or whatever. Okay. So I reinforce the idea that I am good and bad, that I am a split will, a split mind. And I cannot have peace because I'm going to have internal conflict.
Yes.
Okay. And line 6 is saying, look, will was given to us because it's holy. God's will is holy. God gave us a holy will. Okay. And that will bring us everything we need. We don't have to be insecure. We don't have to be trying to survive. We don't have to, struggle, strain. Okay. It's coming as naturally. See, coming as naturally as peace that knows no limits.
Yeah. It's a good section.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. But the little will that we think we can exercise alone, okay, will not provide us anything of value. Yeah, it will provide us things that don't last long, little pleasures or whatever, but that's not valuable. That's not truly valuable. Okay. And because we don't understand that our will is holy and good and only holy and good, we do need the Holy Spirit to understand it for us and to give us what we want without effort, strain, or the impossible burden of deciding what they want and need alone, which means that I am going to be motivated to ask the Holy Spirit to decide for me, for God, at every moment.
Decide
for me, for
for
God,
me.
at every moment. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that's, we'll stop there and we'll pick up on paragraph 11 because there's 19 paragraphs.
Okay, very good.
Okay, great. So thank you for, thank you for joining. Until next time. Bye.